Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.
You ain't getting no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast. Hey, welcome back to Coinology. This is part 2. We had to bring Mr. Stevie Baggs back. I think you guys probably got a lot out of that first episode, and we realized at the end of it that, wait a minute, we just scratched the surface. We really didn't get into what I wanted Stevie to talk about when I initially invited him. So we had to have him back. Welcome back, Stevie.
Wow, what you know about that?
Yeah, what you know about that?
I just know you got $50 a squirt on. You smell good, sis.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to smell like it, right? You got to, Stevie.
It's good to see you again.
Good seeing you.
Yeah.
So when we left off, we talked a lot about mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the mindset is so important as it relates to success, right? And one of the things that you've had an opportunity to be is very successful in different areas of your life, from football to acting and in business. Most people can't, I'll call it a triple threat, right? Because most people will find that one lane and struggle their entire life to become successful in that one lane. Mm-hmm. But you found that success in 3 lanes, right? We talked a little bit about acting in the last time, but I want to talk about it a little bit more because you're coming back in one of the top-rated shows that's out there. I'm so excited about it, and by the time you guys see this, the new season is out, and I'm waiting with bated breath. BMF, right?
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about BMF. How did that come about, and so forth?
Well, BMF was it was funny because I had auditioned for every season, and I was like, dang, man, when are they gonna pick me up? The good thing as an actor, for those of you all who don't know about that world, you have to audition to even get an audition. So it's like they're looking at your picture, they're looking at the role, and they're looking at your reel, and they're trying to figure out, okay, is this person the right fit? So then when you're auditioning, you have a chance to not just audition for that role, you're auditioning for the room. That's what we call it. So like you're trying to win the casting director, you're trying to win the producers, and if they like you, then you know what? We liked him. It just wasn't a fit for that role, but we'll bring him back. And so I ended up, funny story, and I'll tell this story. I ended up meeting one of the main producers' wife. My son and I were having breakfast one day at a restaurant, and he ran over there to her. And she's like, oh, my God, he's so handsome. And what do you do? And I told her I'm an actor and an author and a speaker, and I play ball. She's like, you're an actor? My husband is a producer for BMF. I said, yeah, right. I said, I've auditioned for that show a number of times. And she said, well, you know what? When the next season comes around, this is after season 2 had already wrapped. She said, I'm going to try to connect y'all, and maybe you can get a shot. So
now,
go ahead.
You immediately believed it because in Atlanta, there's a lot of cat.
Yes.
But
this was no cappuccino.
Okay.
This was no Cat
How did you know that? That you just had that?
It was just the way we met. Her son actually had on a BMF hat. The lady's son had on a BMF hat. And so the next day she connected us on Instagram. Her husband and I connected on Instagram. This brother ended up saying, Stevie, I'll give you a shot, man. If all your stuff lines up, I'll give you a shot.
Wow.
So he sends me an audition for season 3. It goes through my agent, of course, but he DM'd me like, hey, bro, this is one that you might like. Well, I did it, and they didn't book me. So he said, I have another one for you, but you got to get it in today. It was like a 1-day turnaround. It was only supposed to be 2 episodes, and I did my thing so well, it turned into 6 episodes. So I'm in 6 out of 10 episodes.
Wow.
So that particular role was actually a role for me. And so that's the difference between success and significance. When something is for you, it's significantly for you. And so a lot of the times what people think is rejection is usually their protection.
Kind of reminds me, of a little bit of what Kat was saying in his interview with Shannon when he talked about how he made his role significant. It was supposed to be like a one-time type thing and ended up being the role for the show.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like that's pretty much what you did. But you've been doing that your entire life. So let me ask you this, though. With your mind being where it is now, being so, quote-unquote, woke and aware, how did you feel about being in a show that kind of, promoted an ugly side of our history? It is a true part of our history, but it's ugly.
Yeah.
So
anything that I do it like knowing that my morals and my ethics and my values have to be in alignment with the why. So I always ask people, what's your why?
Well, what's your why?
My why is to use my platform to draw people in, to be able to tell them the truth on how I think, and maybe it will promote them to think differently. Like, I don't want people to just think like me. We'll all be robots if that was the case. I just want people to think like me. I decided to think. That's what changed my life. And so I just, when you use television, film, the arts, or whatever you do to draw people in, your success or your significance to draw people in, oh man, you do well in business. I want to be like that. Well, then they can now hear how you got there and find out, the principles and the values that you have on why you continuing to, to soar.
So one Sunday brunch led to
serious, right?
Yeah.
And you just never, and I tell people all the time, like, it's not about who you know, but who knows you. Like, Oprah, but Oprah don't know you.
But let me ask you this, because if you even think about it, one of the things that he said was if everything lines up. So people have to also realize, too, that everything needs to line up. You need to always stay ready.
Yes.
Right? Stay ready, stay clean.
Correct.
Make those relationships so that if somebody makes some calls, because you don't know who they're going to call.
Right.
That they're going to look out for Stevie,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely,
right.
But the old saying, it's about who you know. It's all about who you know. But the more specifically, it's about who knows you.
That's right.
Right, and so if somebody knows you, they're willing to give you an opportunity. But you're right. You have to have your ducks in a row. You have to have good character or good relationship skills where you didn't burn bridges. But I think also. The most important thing of it all is that what's for you won't pass you.
That's right.
You might pass it, but it ain't gonna pass you. So a lot of the times people get caught up in, like I said, the rejection, but sometimes that's for your protection.
That's right. Because had you not had some of the rejections earlier on, you wouldn't be sitting where you are right now.
Right.
So let me ask you this. What are your thoughts about O.J. Simpson? Have anybody ever asked you or said that you remind them a little bit of OJ?
No, really? I never heard that.
You as a younger version of OJ,
aesthetically.
Yeah, aesthetically.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about how his life ended?
Wow.
Well, it's not over, but you know what I'm saying.
Just like the fanfare around him. Growing up, like my dad and people in that generation, O.J. Simpson was their hero.
That's right.
He was like all-American guy that everybody loved. The women loved him. He was a good-looking dude. But I think the way it ended is just like a lot of people. If you look at success can be, there's a scripture that says a man is tested by the praise he receives. So it's like when you're receiving a lot of praise in life, that's when you got to really put on more armor. You know what I mean?
You can't fall into it.
Yeah, because, accolades can be detrimental.
Oh, yes.
Because now you don't have that same work ethic, that same drive and vision. And I think that's why I thank the Most High for always keeping me in alignment and keeping me to that space of like, man, stay meek. Because when you start feeling too pompous and too high, that high gate, it got a real long fall.
And sometimes you forget who you are, right? And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because sometimes you may put limitations on yourself, or you may think that you're a little bit higher than what you should be.
Absolutely.
And forget about staying grounded, because I think staying grounded is very important.
That's what it is. And I think not just for OJ, but for any of us who face the perils of success, right? That's why, and I think that's why I said earlier the difference between success and significance. When you're significant, the success doesn't define you, and you don't let that fog, who you are and what you're standing on, and of being grounded.
That's right. And I'll say this too. I think the reason why I also thought about the similarities is because OJ pretty much could have had the same time, probably triple times the success, because he was commercial, such as yourself, right? He was handsome, such as yourself. He was an athlete, such as yourself. He acted, such as yourself. He was also a businessman. He had the world.
He did.
And he was loved by so many people.
Yeah.
And to see him demise from being a household name that everybody wanted, OJ, he was on cereal boxes, to now if you say his name, is a negative connotation.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be really careful with that, because most people in the industry, if you ask almost anybody, industry or household person, if you say Stevie Baggs, they know who you are. I remember I was doing PR for Miss Black USA, and you were
I was the host.
host for that. I'm like, Stevie's here. Then I remember it was a couple of award shows, and I think you were a brand ambassador there. This is before you even began acting. I've seen you, and it wherever your name comes up, people know you. Mm-hmm. And they always have such flattering things to say about you.
Well,
even your mentor who passed away.
Oh man.
And which was, but everybody.
Well, I'm not gonna say everybody.
Well, I will say this. I've never said Stevie Baggs' name, and one, they didn't know who you were.
Wow.
And then two, I haven't heard the negative. Now, I know that there's probably something, because all of us have it.
Yeah.
But what I would say, for the most part, your reputation speaks very highly of yourself, which I think is important. And the reason why I'm saying that isn't to just kind of gas you up, but I think it's important that people do a 360 check. That's important in business.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't know what people think about you and what they say about you, and if you don't, and I'm not saying you have to internalize it,
No,
Stevie,
but it's good though for self-inventory.
you have to have it, because what I will tell you about successful people don't blame other people for their failures.
Absolutely.
When something happens that doesn't go the way that I would like it to go, I don't like using the word failure, but when it doesn't go the way that I like it to go, the first thing I say is, what could I have done differently?
That's so true.
Even if I think initially that I got screwed, let's say that it was a betrayal or somebody da-da-da-da, I don't just look at that person and say, oh, he's a dog, or he did this, or she betrayed. I look at what could I have done differently in that situation, right?
Yes.
And I think it's important that successful people, or if you're looking to be successful, that you do self-inventory.
No, self-inventory is so real, and I appreciate you saying that, sis. Really, I do, because that's what you want. You want your character, and you want your face to be clean when you're dealing with people, because I don't do everything right, but I try my best to do things righteous.
That's right.
Like, and I think in life, sometimes you can be right and still not be righteous.
That's right.
But if you're righteous,
and it's not always about being right.
No, but if you're righteous,
right,
you'll always be right.
Right.
And because I have the opportunity to do wrong, or the right to do wrong, like somebody may have wronged me, and I have the right to do wrong, but that still don't make it right.
Or you may be in an argument and you may be right to say this, but is it the righteous thing to do?
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
So what do you get out of bringing that down? So I think that's important. I just wanted to make sure to share that, because I think one of the things about a mindset shift is understanding that if you lack self-inventory, then you will never be successful.
No, you won't. And I think the main key ingredient to self-inventory also is understanding that everything that happens in your life, good, bad, or indifferent, is a manifestation of who you are. So if something good happens, we're all, hey, boy, I got it out the mud. Man, boy, hey, I work hard. But if something bad happens, then it's everybody else's fault.
That's right.
If something bad happens too, it was your fault. Like somehow, some way, you attracted that energy to you, and you had to either learn that lesson, and like you said, it's not, you don't fail because you fall. You fail because you don't get up.
That's right.
Right.
And what we see as failures many times is not. Like you said, it's a derailment.
Adversity turns into advantage.
That's right.
Testimony, less turns into lesson. Struggle turns into strength. Tragedy, triumph. Turmoil to tranquility. And that's very poetic, but you never heard a success story without somebody saying, man, I've been in the valley. It was hard. Well, it was times when I was trying to give up. And it's like, and full transparency, I mean, last year with the strike happening, I went through a lot of economic redemption that I had to do, and I had to do some self-inventory to say, okay, well, what is important to me and for me at this time of my life?
So were you thinking about actually walking away from acting?
It wasn't walking away from acting because, I planted so many seeds and I knew that there was a harvest on the other side of that. But it was like, it made me lift the veil on other things in my life. Like, I'm a land developer, right? I'm building a subdivision in Conyers, Georgia. I dove into that even more than I had ever done before.
So you believe in multiple streams, right?
Absolutely.
Now, again, you're going into a whole different area. We talking about from football to acting. Now, land development. I also know you're a restaurateur too, right?
I owned a restaurant for 4 years in the city of
So
Atlanta.
it sounds like you jump into different industries completely fresh and new, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about developing. Did you have a mentor? What are some of the key elements that you have to have before you jump into these industries so that you know that you're straight?
Well, my business acumen has always been a universal kind of a approach. My degree was in international business, but I don't think that having a degree makes you a good business person. We all know that. I think that just the mindset of having a global perspective on being able to be multifaceted and multidimensional is where I was at. And so when I got out of football, I was like, I probably should have jumped into real estate, but I bought my first house at 21, and so at the end of the day, like, that was something that I had, a hurdle that I had already crossed, but I hadn't mastered it. But owning a restaurant was like, I just wanted to invest my money.
But that's a tough field.
When I
Most
say
people that get into restaurants, they lose their hat, right?
Let me tell you.
If you don't know what you're doing in the restaurant industry, from ordering food and inventory, because the food can go bad if you don't hurry up, from employees
Payroll.
coming on time and then getting the money off the top of the books, bad customer service.
It was such a great lesson for me as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, because a lot of people think that they're an entrepreneur because they have an EIN number. Or they have, when you have a brick and mortar, when you have to open the doors to another place and you have to be responsible for paying rent there and payroll and inventory and I mean, all the number of things that it takes to operate, be an owner and operator of an establishment, it taught me about systems. It taught me the fact that you don't control people, you control your systems.
That's right.
When I learned that was something that I've been able to take in other areas of my life.
So let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
You don't control people, you control systems. Let's talk about, what do you mean by that? For somebody that's outside who does not know what you're talking about.
Right.
What do you mean?
So your systems, controlling your systems, an example of that is being able, from an inventory perspective, you're like, okay, I bought X amount of turkey. I bought X amount of coffee. I had X amount of hookah, right? And now I need to know how much money I made off of this particular inventory batch. And now you have to, as an owner operator, you need to be the one behind the counter. I'm a firm believer in that. Even if you are the face of it and the money behind it, I think you need to know all the nuances of your business so that you know if someone's stealing from you.
Listen, I have a girlfriend of mine who has multiple restaurants in different chains. And she tells me every time she opens up a restaurant, she usually has to work that restaurant at least 5 years before she moves on to the next.
She's not lying.
She said because she has to, one, make sure that she understands the flow, the staffing, the financials or whatever. And so sometimes people don't understand. They're like, oh, he's not the owner. I saw him back there as the bartender.
Yeah.
You better be back there as, yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
Because if you don't control your systems, you're going to lose the whole business.
So why did you close it?
My lease was up, and I knew that it wasn't my passion.
Okay.
But see, I tried it.
But you operate, okay, you entered into it because you wanted to invest your money, not because you were a great cook and you said,
yeah, no.
But some people think, I make the best apple pies.
Yeah, no. I was not, I guess, dismayed about my cooking skills, but I love people. And so, like, our best nights were like the open mic night. We had a dope open mic live band. We had conscious conversation night, and then we did a bunch of different events. A number of TV film productions shot there. I was acting before I got the restaurant.
Okay.
And when I got the restaurant, it actually kind of took away from me continuing to pursue TV film.
Right, because
I was so busy with that.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If you're going to own a restaurant, you can't be trying to be one of those entrepreneurs that's going to be like on the beach. That's the one thing I do wonder, because I do have a girlfriend that she is probably gone out the country maybe 80% of the time, but she's a new restaurant owner. And I wonder, how can you do that?
She must have a huge investment team or an influx of cash, or she must be
or maybe she has a really good manager.
System, or a great manager. So here's the thing, like, if I would have been able to have a full liquor license in my spot, I would have been able to hire someone and pay them the kind of money to run operations. And then it takes you away from the business so that you can focus on your other passions. So at the time, I was running my nonprofit, my after school program. So so I had after school program, then I would get an audition or two from my agent, and then I would have to go pick up my daughter, and then I would have to go, go to the gym.
Oh my goodness.
And then, I got a call. Mr. Stevie, I can't show up today. I had boom, boom. So now I got to go back there and make coffee and sandwiches and smoothies. And so like people don't really understand how.
But how do you know how to make do you know how to cook?
No, yeah, I do know how to cook.
Okay, I'm about to say, because I see some people back there behind the scenes making a sandwich, and I'm like, but you don't even know how to cook.
No, yeah. Like I'm definitely a Renaissance man.
Okay,
and you can't domesticate me, but I'm domestic.
So you knew in 4 years, you said, okay, I have a choice here. So that was the road. You met at the road. Was that a difficult choice to make, to say, I'm going
to let it go?
Yeah, to let
Absolutely
it go.
not.
It wasn't.
Absolutely. It was
you know what?
on the planet.
And most people I know who walk away from restaurant business,
they say it that way.
They say adios.
I'm
They're
talking
quick
about
to get out.
Immediately.
So you were like, bad. So did you sell it or did you just close it?
Well, I sold some of the things in there. As a matter of fact, Delapo and his team, they came and bought some of the sound equipment that I had in there.
Okay.
And, I sold a couple of TVs and I sold some of the hookahs, and I was selling things like that, but my lease was up.
So let me ask you this. So you were able to liquidate the equipment to make some money before you closed. Did you ever think about just, so what's the difference between just closing the doors and liquidating the equipment versus making the decision to sell the brand? Did you ever think about, hey, let me just sell this brand?
Yeah, my systems weren't in tact enough to do that at the time.
Okay.
Just being forthright. I mean, like when you're so busy robbing Peter to pay Paul and inventory, payroll, employees, and this and that, and just like to worry about the systems of it and to really focus on being able to duplicate and scale the business, right? My mindset wasn't on scaling.
Right.
My mindset was on survival.
Survival of the fittest.
And we were making good money. Like we could bring in $500-600 for a cafe. That was good.
Very good.
But I was spending $500-600 too. So it's like, dang, you have to expend all this energy, and then it's taken away from my other passions. So then it's like, I can't train how I want to train and get on my bike and go to the gym. I had gained so much weight. I was like 280 pounds.
Wow. So you walked away and you were fine with walking away.
Yes, absolutely.
Completely. So then you transitioned into land development?
So no. So I've authored 2 books.
Good grief. What have you not done?
I've authored 2 books.
Okay.
Greater Than the Game and Woke.
Okay.
Which I have a book for you.
Okay.
So Greater Than the Game was my first book that I wrote as soon as I got done playing ball. Okay. And it's a self-help, inspirational kind of book. But then my nonprofit is 22 years old. My mom and I started that my rookie year in the league. So, speaking. So as an author and a speaker and then the nonprofit, those are 3 streams that was like at the forefront. Speaking really was my main thing that I made money before TV film.
Okay.
And then I'm a firm believer, land development came because I'm a firm believer that you can't change the culture without having agriculture.
Okay.
Right? We're so taught to worry about buying a Land Rover, but no land. So like for me, like I remember sleeping in my Range Rover as a pro football player in the CFL. I remember the day when they said, we're not going to pay for your hotel anymore. You got to find a place to stay. And until I did that, and this is pro football now, I had a Land Rover, but no land. And so like, I had my house in Florida, but I literally didn't have the mindset to say, well, dang, hold up, man. You think that this is important, driving around in a Land Rover, but you're playing a game that's not even able to support your full, life. So even that was something that was just
That was a
tumultuous.
humbling moment. So did you sell the Range Rover at that point?
Not at that point. I was able to get on my feet, man. I had a family. People say favor ain't fair. I think it's very fair for whoever the Most High gives it to. Because I had a family in Canada at that time. You talking 2006. These people brought me in their home and they allowed me to stay in the basement while I was a pro football player.
Wait a minute, they didn't know who you were?
I met the guy on the sideline. He was a referee. And I used to talk to him every home game. And then we used to go out to lunch and he just liked my energy. It's an Italian guy at that who had 2 daughters that were like 21 and 23.
Was he crazy?
Crazy. Because I definitely wouldn't have done that. But
no.
they ended up being like my little sisters. And then they were, Cena and Caesar are like still like parents to me to this day.
Wow.
You know, and that's
angels.
I'm telling you,
angels.
And that's what the kind of favor that's on your life when you know that you have good intentions. I know that my intentions for people are good.
So how did you end up going to him and saying, I need a place to stay?
Well, he was just we used to always talk, and he was asking me what's going on, and I told him what the team had done. They were like, we're paying you at this point now, so you got to find a place to stay.
Wow.
So I did not have, I wasn't making enough money in the CFL at the time. It was $523 a week, which when you brought that back to US is like 400 and some bucks. You converted it to the US dollar. So I didn't have enough money. So these people didn't ask me for a dime.
Wow. So how long did you stay there?
I stayed there the whole season. And the next season, of course, I was on the roster and I was making real money, so I was good at that next season. But it was like for a whole week I was sleeping in the range, and I was going to the facility because we have the key fob to the facility, so I'll be the first one in the facility. I'm in the sauna, I'm taking a shower. They like, ready. Man, how you get here so early? Because I was sleeping in the car.
So you didn't even think, okay, being a young football player, handsome, all the women screaming, you didn't think about, okay, let me go ahead on and play some games with somebody's head and lay on her couch, because that's what a lot of men would do, right?
But at the time that wasn't even on my mind, because my mind was on being the best football player I could be at the time. So it wasn't even on like, man, let me lay up under a girl right now. And I did have friends, but it wasn't like I just always had the mindset I'm not trying to play games with people,
right?
Because I already know karma and destiny are real.
It is,
and so when you play with people like that, you know what comes behind that.
Yep.
So yeah.
Have you seen this whole thing with this Risa Tisa stuff that's going on TikTok? Oh, I have to tell you about it after. It's too much to talk about right now, but it's a trip. Okay, so land development. All right.
Yes.
That's a beast. So how many homes on the property? What are the homes going for?
Okay.
Et cetera, et cetera.
It's going to be 5.8 acres.
Okay.
And there's going to be 4 homes, and the price range is $2.5 to $3.5 million each home.
Okay.
So they're the modern style homes, and
you already hired your builder. And
we have our builder, and our surveyor's been amazing. Shout out to Zach. Shout out to Samkins Construction. That's our surveyor and our builder. And my mom, my stepdad, and I, we came together and we bought this land as a family. And I think that's what people don't understand. Like, you always want to do stuff by yourself and make it seem like it's all on you. No, I think collectively, when we come together, that's how we can make things happen.
Family, generational.
And as a full land developer, I know everything from grading land disturbance permits to, is it septic, is it sewer, is it power ran?
But how do you, so just saying that gives me a headache.
Okay.
So when you started this, did you have someone to say, okay, this is what you need to do first, second, third?
No.
How did you figure this all out?
We literally hit our head, and that's why it's taken almost 4 years. Because we were able to hire the guys to do a perk test the soil, get a good surveyor. Our surveyor has been tremendous in helping us out. Zach, man, he's just been a straight gift from the Most High. And then we've run across so many different builders. Shout out to AD Designs, who is actually the guy who did the custom. These are custom homes. I mean, the plans are phenomenal. I'll show them to you.
Yeah. So how did you choose Conyers?
Well, Conyers kind of chose us because that's where we found the land. I wasn't married to any place, but I knew I wanted to be in the outskirts because I'm gonna probably have one of the homes too for myself out there. I wanted to get out of the city center because I wanted to really be in a place where I wasn't worried about my children being safe and things of that nature. So, and I want to grow my own food. So one of the cool things about our neighborhood is that we're encouraging every home to grow their own food or to grow something from an agricultural perspective, so then that we can barter between one another on different things. So they may have chickens and eggs, and we might have watermelon or kale. And
so you guys are really going very.
Yeah, because we really understand that we want to control our own food. We want to really
the food supply.
Yeah, we really want to, as much as we can, of course, right? We're not all the way off the grid, and we're not all the way, self-sustainable, but as much as we can. But it's a modern style.
But that's the wokeness that we're talking about, because what is the name of that movie that Barack Obama and Michelle produced that was on Netflix? Leave the World Behind, right? All right. Did you watch that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let's stop there. This morning, I know this is probably dated by the time this airs, but there was a international outage with AT&T, and I about lost my mind.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I have two phones. I have an Android and I have a iPhone. And of course, my Android was completely dead, because the Androids, you couldn't even connect it to the wireless. At least you can get your
Wi-Fi.
Apple to the Wi-Fi to the Apple. All right. But what it did tell me was, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I'm losing money not being able to connect, right? And I felt like for some reason, even though you really could still, for some reason, I felt like the world was stopping and that it was like a travesty that was happening. And then the first thing I thought about was that movie, right? So going back, so this is about being woke again.
Wow.
What do you think about this morning's outage?
So I literally referenced that movie today to someone and told them they want us to have electric cars. They're pushing the AI thing. But if one of these grids shuts down, then people are done. I remember when those Teslas started crashing into one another, right? These self-driving vehicles.
No joke.
It's like, if our world comes to that, like, it's almost like it's a foreshadowing.
First of all,
of things to come, that could come.
Why would Obama be behind it? But then secondly, I also heard that after that movie, the value of Teslas tanked.
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to get rid of.
Well, people are hearing about the Teslas burning up, the batteries burning up, and actually that is not as good for emissions as people are saying, because once the batteries go dead, then what do you do with those batteries? Where do you put those batteries? And it's just as toxic as, gas. Look, every time we go to a new age, when they left from horses to cars, everybody was tripping. So when they left from gasoline cars to now electric, people were tripping. I think that we just got to find a balance and a way to be in alignment with nature. I
think this too. I think people need to wake up and realize too that the next war will not be war as we know it. It won't be bombs. It will be cyber. It will be biomedical. It
Absolutely.
will be, we saw a little bit of that with the COVID, how they could just, because if you think about how our armed forces were weakened by COVID. If you notice, they gave us percentages of people who contracted COVID, but they would never tell us how our armed forces actually was holding up with COVID, right? And if you really looked at the numbers, our armed forces took a major hit. But of course, you wouldn't put that out there, because that would become
it will let everybody know
national
that
security
we're weak,
issue,
quote unquote.
Right. We're sitting out there. But this morning, I don't think that, and this is not a conspiracy theory type thing. I really would like to know what happened this morning. It wasn't just Georgia. It wasn't just the East Coast. It wasn't just the United. This was an international outage.
I did not know it was
international outage. Wow. And I think people need to pay very close attention, because I noticed that something was wrong yesterday, because last night before my office closed, I couldn't connect my computer, my desktop here at the office, to the network. So my assistant, she was working on it. Everybody else was connected. So, I kept thinking there was something wrong with my computer.
Correct.
It was strange. It just wouldn't recognize it. We went home this morning. I told them, I said, this was a foresight for what was going to happen today. So I think they started having issues yesterday and had not said anything, what makes you wonder. But I just want people to be prepared to know that, You know, the next war is cyber, is biomedical. It's also an attack on our identity. You get a control of our funds and our money in the bank account, and you can't get your money out. And even if you can get your money out, like it said in the movie, your money is no good here. Remember that guy said that in the movie. So I think that we just got to get our minds ready. And I think what you're saying, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that movie where you will have a community. So somebody will have the poultry and the beef. Somebody else over here can have the different pieces at the different houses, and you guys can kind of like create your own
ecosystem. And then we can barter between one another, because to your point, this is not just a biochemical war or cyber war. It's a spiritual war, more importantly. Because if you attack the spirit of a person, then you can attack the mind.
That's right.
And if you control the mind, then you control the man.
You control everything.
You know, and so consequently, if you look at how the mind of people are acting, we, in America especially, we're so weak because our food is weak. You take 7 apples today, it takes 7 apples to equivalent the nutrients of 1 apple in 1970. If you I want people to just imagine, are you from up north or the south?
Well, it's technically the south. I'm from Virginia.
Okay, so you remember light bugs? Mm-hmm. Remember how many light bugs we used to see?
I don't never see them.
You don't see them anymore.
Where they at?
You used to go on a road trip from Florida to Georgia or Virginia. Your car would be full of bugs.
Yeah.
Well, the bugs are even dying because the herbicides and the pesticides that they're spraying, the chemtrails. People get mad and say they're not. They're definitely trying to get rid of us. And so what are we going to do? We have to find a way to combat that.
Who is they? When you say they are trying to get rid of us, who is that?
Well, it's just like all value is based on perception. Mm-hmm. Well, who controls the perception? It's that same they.
Well,
it's like to me, you can't point. I don't point at a direct finger at anybody because you don't know.
And what benefit is it? Because when you say get rid of us, they are part of us, right? They are a person too, right?
You would think that, but maybe they're not. Maybe these people aren't. Maybe their soul and their spirit is not the same as ours. That's why they do the things that they do.
Or maybe they're not people.
That's my point. So
let me ask you this. Okay, I'm having a conversation with somebody who can kind of go there a little bit with me. I was shocked. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine. She comes from a long lineage of Air Force professionals. Her mother was a spy in the Air Force. Her father was some, big person in the Air Force. She went on and was a major officer. Her daughter went into, so it was a family lineage, right?
Okay.
And then her daughter transferred into a new area in the armed forces that I did not know existed. They said that Trump created this. Had you heard of the Space Force?
No. So
Trump created a different an additional armed forces entitled Space Forces. And it's similar to Air Forces except for it's going beyond. Okay. Now, the thing is, you're the third person I asked, because she was shocked that I had never heard of it. But, of course, because she's in
that world.
So, of course, but I told her, I said, civilians, we've never heard of the Space Force. And this thing has been in place since Trump was in office. So it's been in place for a while. So I'm wondering, is it top secret or not? But it makes you wonder, too, one, are they planning to go in the space or the bunkers? Because right now, bunker real estate is majorly expensive. It's very expensive. Or when you think about AI, and then you also know that it has been proven, this is not conspiracy, that there are extraterrestrial beings. Right?
That's what we've been told for the longest.
But now Trump was the first one who really said this is the truth. He released the documents from NASA and he said stop lying to the people. So then that takes me to where I want to go with this whole Trump conversation, because a lot of people are very angry about Trump in this next election, because we're less than a year away from the next election.
Okay.
But Trump basically is saying stop lying to the people and tell them the truth. There are extraterrestrials. He also mentioned about the truth around, the creation of COVID, right? In which we found that to be the truth, right? He talked about some of our fight. This is not a pro or against Trump.
Correct.
I'm just saying, as a educated voter or educated citizen, you need to understand what it is that you're faced up.
Okay.
Now, they just had SneakerCon. Had you heard about that?
I know he just released the shoe.
Never Surrender is the name. And they said the shoe
Selling out.
sold out in hours.
Yeah.
You could even gold or silver.
I love it.
I love the name. When I heard the name Never Surrender, I got chills.
Absolutely.
Because what does never surrender mean to you?
It's that same mindset, that grit, that stick-to-itiveness, that me playing on 11 teams in 10 years. I was never going to surrender. Me right now, why do I still go get up at 5 a.m. and hit the gym every day? It's the never surrender. And you have to have that mentality. I'll never surrender my masculinity. Because I think that, see, right now we're dealing with an attack on masculinity, which ends up being an attack on femininity, which ultimately is an attack on humanity.
That's right.
If I make the men weak, I can do whatever I want to the women and children. So that's what society today is doing. Now, talking about Trump and NASA, the word NASA in Hebrew means deception. So we need to understand that. So when you think about government, the word government, break it down as who's governing your mental. Whoever is governing your mental is usually who's funding your mental.
That's right.
So that's why we live in a capitalistic society. So they push our energy towards just chasing paper, but not really looking at purpose. And if you look at anybody that is money hungry, they'll do anything to get it. In order to be truly free, we must overcome the love of wealth and the fear of death. That's when you're free.
And I see, so let me ask you this is a question I'm going to ask you about Trump. Do you see it as narcissism, or do you see it as being firm and never surrendering, with him saying, because he could have just rode off into the sunset and left all this behind, but he is determined to be on that ballot in November.
Yes.
He's determined to fight. He's determined. What's the difference between narcissism and just being determined?
I think it's a thin line. I think it's a thin line. And you know, when you look at a certain demographic of people in America, especially Caucasian people in America or melanated people who have achieved the American dream, these people still believe in the system. I, on the other hand, know that you can't vote your way into a better life. It's right wing, left wing, one bird. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm a theocrat. I go under the Most High law, under the laws of the Most High. And see, when we start to do that, then we'll start to get in alignment to our assignment, especially melanated people, because we're trying to vote in a system that wasn't created for us in the first place. We're getting upset at people who created, Bill of Rights and constitutions that have us included in it, if you know, but really on the grand scheme, we're not included in it. So people like Trump have benefited, but also people like Biden and also people like, Obama. If you have
because Trump wasn't always a Republican.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, melanated people always weren't Democrats.
That's right. And to me, I don't think that we need to all be the same. We need to vote off of what are our principles, what matters to you. Because, so as melanated people are walking into the ballots this year, what are some of the things that you think they need to be thinking about when they're making a decision? Not what mama did and grandma did and uncle did and my pastor said. You need to make your own decision for what's best for you. So what are some of the elements that you think that we need to think about?
That's a great question. And my response to that is that there's an old saying that if you want to change a system, you have to stop participating in the system. So then if you stop participating in the system and they still tell you that somebody gets elected, you'll know that your vote don't count. Because when I pick out somebody, like in high school, when you were the most popular, you're the best dressed, we selected them. We didn't elect, we select. So
you knew that. Let me tell you what woke me up. What woke me up about our election system was when Al Gore lost
the whole Florida thing.
The whole thing with the ballots, right?
That was huge.
But this is the thing. The same people who were upset about Al Gore and the ballots back in 2000 are the same people today that's saying that Trump is crazy for questioning the electoral system. I'm saying the election system is broken and has been broken. So why is it oh, it was unfair when it happened to Al Gore, but now that we have questions about what's happening today, is not
because the media has put Trump and painted Trump in a bad light, which my acronym for media is multi-ethnic destruction in America, right? In Africa, in Asia. But at the end of the day, we have to recognize that media is not going to give you the full story and the full truth. They never have. So if you believe everything you see on CNN, Fox, and C-SPAN, or whatever these people are, then you have to start questioning that, right? And start trying to figure out things for your own, and start have discernment, have intuition, ask for clairvoyance, ask for to learn how to think instead of what to think. Society has taught people what to think, but they don't teach people how to think. So because people are not taught how to think, whatever they see on the stupid box or television, they take it for full and face value. And so then you don't do any research. And unfortunately, people don't even understand, if you're still talking about race in 2024, if you think it's about,
you missed the boat.
If you think it's about black versus white instead of
missed the boat,
it's about darkness versus light.
Yep,
wrongness versus righteous, right? And so,
but racism does still exist.
Racism is a thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that white supremacy hasn't given people white privilege. White supremacy has allowed people to have white privilege.
Because I'm gonna tell you this: if January 6th were a bunch of us, everybody would have been dead. They would have. Everybody would have been dead.
And I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't argue that. I'm saying though that there's a scripture that says the Gentiles shall see your righteousness. We have to. Most of our people kill each other more than anybody on the planet. We would get mad at a police officer killing our people. How can Black Lives Matter, which is funded by a white Jewish person, or the Black Panther Party, which is also funded by white people? We don't even understand that. The majority of the groups that push our initiatives are funded by people who don't look like you. NAACP. Now, so if we started looking at the origin of a thing, Marcus Garvey says this: if your objective is funded by your oppressor, you will always be in bondage. So why are we so captive? Most people are captive because of their wants. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But I have some needs. So once we start to focus on our needs instead of focusing on wants, now we don't have to be captive. But we're held captive as melanated people to the American dream, which is really the American scheme. So Gentiles have helped melanated people throughout history because they can see our light more than we can. So because you don't know your light and love your light, and another brother will hate on that light, or another sister will hate on your light. So that's why we're in the place that we're in. We have to do self-inventory. We have to start repenting and confessing so that we can liberate ourselves spiritually, so that we can transcend.
But how do we do that?
Repent and confess. Confess, like, look, I do have to change my ways. Why do I hate myself so much? I do have to change what I eat. Why am I continuing? Why are melanated people the sickest people on the planet? They don't drink no water. They don't want to work out. They don't want to change.
Why? But why?
Because we're so enamored with tradition and not truth. We're enamored with religion and not righteousness. So we'll do everything that somebody else gave us.
We'll do what's comfortable, right?
And there's no growth in comfort. We know that.
Right.
But I'm saying we'll also do what we've been indoctrinated and manipulated and conditioned to do. So then somebody like us who are talking truth and telling you, hey, let's re-examine Christmas, and Easter bunnies don't lay eggs, chickens lay eggs, and let's re-examine the conditioning that we've been under. If we're thankful on Thanksgiving, when you fast on that day instead of picking out, if you want to show thankfulness, I don't need Mother's Day to call my mother or Father's Day to call my father and tell him I love him. If you were my mate, I don't need to give you flowers because they told me like, this is ridiculous.
Well,
let
me ask you this, because we are in a different time. I don't know if anybody else in the studio can feel this, but I can feel it. It feels very much like, I don't know, it feels off. Even when I walk out the door, sometimes I feel a little
uneasy. Yes.
Okay. What do you think that's all about?
The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. And because we're moving into a new age,
and let's talk about that new age.
We're leaving the age of Pisces and we're in the age of Aquarius, and we're ushering in a new age. That's why in the Bible, when it says we're in the last days, you are in the last days of that age. Okay. Not the last days of time.
So you were ushering in, you said, into Aquarius.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Aquarius is the water bearer. And the way I can break it down is like the water bearer comes to wash everything away so you can see and see clearly what's going on.
So you think that's why so many people are becoming exposed this year?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And the information age is huge. Technology is huge. That's a part of the Aquarius age. This is how you were able to separate the meat from the bone.
Okay.
In the old age, many were called, but few were chosen. In this age, everybody's going to be called, but everybody's still not going to choose. And see, that's where the kumbaya moment really hits the road. Because
so you mean that everybody will have the opportunity because they will have the information readily available?
Like these platforms that we're on, we have an opportunity now to give information to people.
It's whether or not they choose to. So it kind of reminds me a little bit about, some of our favorite celebrities that most recently are under attack right now. There's been rumbles about this stuff for decades, but nobody ever really did anything about it.
Right.
But now it seems like it's something that shifts. So there's a shift that has to happen in order for people to actually start to accept the information. Because you can tell people all day, this is bad for you, and they still go and do it.
Yeah, because the people who their icons, their idols, see another scripture. You should have no idol before me, but we have idols and celebrities. I don't celebrate anybody.
I think the celebrity
I celebrate
thing is
myself and I celebrate the Most High, and that's really about it. Because even if you start celebrating your seeds too much, that becomes your children can become your idol.
Yep.
So, and now you putting something in between you and the Most High, and now your downloads are not going to be as crisp as they should be. And this is what's going on. People are having neurological, mental, cognitive breakdowns because I'm telling you, everything is dead. So if the food is dead, the TV is dead, the religions are dead, the music is dead, the food is dead, the government is dead. So then when somebody's speaking life to a bunch of people who are used to hearing death, then it's not going to be palatable to them.
So what happened? So this is my question, though. What's going to happen to us? I feel like in November, whichever way it goes, I just feel like we don't have any real options.
We can't be afraid. The one thing, you can't be afraid to live and die. You got to do one. So I'm not afraid to live or die.
How do you get to a point of not being afraid to die?
When you know that you live forever, when you know that your spirit is forever, this meat suit is gonna perish. That's why we get aged, and righteous people don't age as much as other people that's unrighteous. I will say that. But that's why we age. That's why the body ages. That's why when the spirit leaves the body, it goes back to the dust, ash to ashes, dust to dust. This is why that happens, because this is a temporary space that we're in.
Do you believe that once someone passes on, that their spirit actually leaves this earth?
I don't know. I never speak on that anymore because I grew up Christian, and then the heaven and hell thing was there, and then you get conscious, and then the reincarnation thing is there. Anybody who's living right now, they can't tell you what's going on when they die. And if they can, they a bad mother. You know what? Come on, man. Like, get out of here. You're going off of what you believe or what you hope to happen. But the only thing that I know is that I'm not self-created. That's what I know. I know that it's the Most High God, right? And that God for me is Yahweh, Yud Hey Waf. That's the name that I say. But at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not you believe or have faith or whatever, we do know this meat suit that we're all in shall perish. That see, like for me, that's why I find the Most High. When I speak to people, I find the Most High in the things that you can't argue. So you can't argue the breath you breathe. Like, let's do an exercise. On the count of 3,
okay,
you either breathe in or breathe out.
Okay.
All right, 1, 2, 3. No matter what, you're going to eventually have to breathe out. That's a law.
That's right. It's part of it. If you want to continue.
So that's the Most High. You might not want to call it gravity, but if you fall off a building, you coming down. These are laws. So those laws is where I find the Most High, and in that space is where I find peace. no matter what happens with elections, no matter what happens with the economy, no matter what happens, because at the end of the day, this is a temporary space. Your spirit is what lives forever. Now, where your spirit goes and what happens after that, I don't know. Somebody else may know, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't.
You don't know.
And I can't.
And I'll say this too: a lot of people are looking to leave this country. They're looking, but my thing is, you can't run, you can't hide, because what we're looking at
is global.
It's a global situation, right?
When people always tell me, you know, women and men always, man, I hate Atlanta, because the men or because the women. You take you behind the San Diego, the people over there saying the same thing. You know, it's like, bruh, you can't run from it. You got to do you. I don't have no trauma and no drama in my life because of who I am and what I attract but what I project. Look, I'm manifesting no drama, no trauma. I'm manifesting the only lack I will have is a Cadillac. You have to manifest these things, and that's what your world will become.
Well, I will say this: if anybody out there is thinking that Stevie's just saying this, you have to go back to part 1. Because part 1, Stevie outlines his journey, and he starts to talk a little bit about it in part 2 when he talks about how life just happened for him, but it was all a plan. And the way that he's been able to successfully rise above, that's not normal. It's not normal. Hence the reason why we invited you here, because we don't usually invite just anybody. The abnormal is who we invite.
Yes.
And I think it's important. So for those who are already questioning, is what he's saying true? If it's not true, look at your own life, and then look at the fruits that this man has bared, and question whether or not what you're doing is in alignment with where you're supposed to be and what the Most High has for your life, right? As we bring this to close, because I'm like, here we go again.
I know.
It keep getting real hot. But as we bring this to close, what do you want people to remember about Stevie Baggs?
Legacy. I just did a talk at Fort Valley State, and it was their annual luncheon gala. Scholarships, so they were raising money for scholarships. And I told them that legacy is not what you leave for people, it's what you leave in people. Because whatever you leave for people, that can be temporary, like what we just talked about. But what you leave in people is eternal. So that's what true legacy looks like to me. And, you know, out of 100% of the people, going back to your point about your character, and I'll close with this, I'll land with this. Out of 100% of people that you come into encounter in your life, 25% of those people will love you but can be persuaded to hate you. 25 will hate you but can be persuaded to love you. 25 will hate you no matter what you do, and 25 will love you no matter what you do. So I never live my life to try to please everybody, because that's not that's impossible.
It's impossible.
Right? So as you're going out into your lives, I want to say this again. In order to truly be free, we must start overcoming the love of wealth and then the fear of death. If they can't buy you out and they can't kill you out, then you're free.
And I'll close out on that, because what I will say is that is something we saw in live motion with Kanye West. We've seen him. He has said it, no fear.
No fear.
No fear.
We have to be courageous. And it's easy for him to be courageous too, because he's already done the things. Like he went and got their money. He went and got their fame. I call it air, access, influence, resources. He went and got their air. But then now he said, well, I'm gonna bring it back over. What if some of these people who we talk about, what if they sacrifice their mom to go there and get they call it Illuminati and they say all this, but what if these people sacrifice their mom? What if his mom's like, baby, go ahead. I'm sick anyway. I'm gone. You just go do the mission. Like, don't get me wrong. I know it's a lot of evil going on, but what if some people have a righteous thing for this? Man, this is not something I will ever do. They'll go kill their parents or family, or they'll go put on a dress or do whatever they got to do, the rituals. But what if somebody is doing that to try to get in, infiltrate, so they can lift the veil? Maybe that's just a question that I had the other day to myself. I'm like, wow, what if it was the case with Kanye? Well,
Kanye's mom wasn't sick though.
Okay, she had a surgery and she
went in and had plastic surgery and then died from some complications for that. So, but I will say that Kanye's been very open and honest.
He said he sacrificed his mom.
He said it. And this is the thing. A lot of people don't talk about that in the industry. People want to, cover it up. Mm-hmm. But eventually, like when we said other things have finally been exposed in the industry, I think at time, because there's been several celebrities that have come out and said, this is and this has happened. But until then, I think we know it's coming. We're moving into Aquarius, and a lot of things are being exposed. And I think I would recommend for you to watch this series probably multiple times because Stevie has dropped a lot of nuggets here. And some of it may go over your head the first couple of times. You're going to have to go back and watch it a few times and stop it and think about it, study it, go out there and research it, and then come back to it again so that you can make sure that you're not one of those that just kind of go with the flow and be one of the ones that had the opportunity but chose not to be chosen. Right? Yeah.
Oh, that's hard.
But again, thank you so much, Stevie, for coming back for part 2. And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Get no money if you're constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing the deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.